Good everyone. I'm here to talk to you today about why esports should be considered a viable alternative to physical sports. I'll start off with my experience is there are certain esports that I watch. I like top level fighting games, certain MOBA games are very fun to watch. I would say that esports are considered a sport because you still have to train really hard to be good at it. It still requires mental and physical accuracy and like finesse. And there is still a danger of like a risk of injury, but it's not as severe as any other physical sport. Like you won't get a concussion, you definitely won't die. The worst thing you can probably get is carpal tunnel. You can get some bad back issues, but there are some things that have been added to combat that. Since esports began mostly as people playing in the same room together, a common practice early on in the business was to rent a house together and have all the players live inside the house and practice and live in the same space. This was bad because it did not allow separation between work and relaxation for the players. So that contributed a lot to burnout. The players would stop being interested, they would be tired all the time, they wouldn't care as much about the game because that was all they did was they would wake up, they'd eat, and they'd play the game for hours and hours until they'd go to bed, and they'd do all the same thing over and over again. Some stories from esports houses are like a player would wake up 2 minutes before a meeting, just roll out of bed, not even put on clothes. He was just in his like jammies, and he just walked into the meeting and just looked disheveled and stuff. And that's not professional. So to combat this, some organizations like Team Liquid have constructed a esports facility. These facilities have state-of-the-art tech, they've got coaches, they've got staff professionally, not just like staff that you'd have to call in your house, there's staff like on site. And the team also has access to a nutritionist, sports psychologist, and a gym so the players can stay healthy. And some players have reported that it's way easier for them. Like it's less stressful that they can just go up, they can talk to their coach, they can talk to their staff if they have a problem. They don't have to like call in people. They don't have to seem like they're bothering them because they're all there to work. And then at the end of the day, they can just go home. Like there's a separation of work and relaxation because it's not in the same house as them. All of those perks of the esports facility foster a more structured and work-focused environment compared to esports houses, according to a statement made from Noah Smith of the Washington Post. Also, having these training facilities promotes professionalism, and it's a way that esports is learning from traditional sports. Another big component to esports growth would be the job growth that'll come out of it. And that's like physical trainers, coaches, analysts, casters, players, psychologists, lawyers. They're all needed to keep the growth going and keep it alive. Like lawyers especially will need to be specialized in this because early on, since it's so unprofessional, players would just sign contracts, any contracts they were given, and that means teams could just steal the money that they earn away from them because they weren't reading what they were given because they were young teenagers, young like 17-year-olds. They were signing contracts they didn't know. So now they have lawyers that can help keep them safe. And like especially there is a World Esports Association that has been built specifically to help keep the players safe and not taken advantage of by their teams. Esports is harnessing the power of a previously unreachable and untapped market to grow in popularity. How many of you play video games? Have you played them for an extended period of time?
Heck yeah.
I think so. So, most of the time when people play video games, it's not complete, but a lot of times they're not truly interested in traditional sports. And that's just something that happens. Because you stay inside, you play the video games, you're more interested in that. Sometimes you can do both, but it's hard to focus on one thing over the other. So because this audience has existed and built up over the years, there is a big market for esports to tap into that traditional sports just couldn't reach before. According to Business Insider, approximately 300 million people worldwide watch esports today, And by 2020, that number will be closer to 500 million people. That's a lot of people. Perhaps the most crucial point that I came across in my research was a point by Young-Koo Lee, who is a professor of marketing at Syracuse. He said, unlike football or cricket, esports is not rooted in any region or culture, so they have a more global appeal. And I thought that was really interesting because American football is titled American. It's different than European football. And European football is very particular in the way they celebrate. It's different than the way American football fans celebrate. It's different than the way cricket players celebrate. It's different than golf. Like, golf appeals to a very particular market. So, esports doesn't have any culture associated with it. It can be enjoyed by anywhere. People in South Korea can enjoy the same game as people in North America. Like, there's no disconnect there. And I think that's really cool. Also, more data from Syracuse predicts that by 2020, esports will have more viewers overall worldwide than any other sports league besides the NFL. That's because esports, again, appeals to millions of people who had no interest in traditional sports. The rising professionalism, popularity, and growth of esports is likely to overtake these sports in the coming years, and the ease of watching it and broad appeal will only continue to help it grow. You can watch esports from anywhere. Like, you don't have to go out to a stadium, even though the stadiums exist and are being built to watch it. You can watch it from the comfort of your home anywhere, and it's just like being there. Like, it's a screen, so there's not getting in close to the players. You can see everything. There's no like advantage to being there besides the crowd appeal. I'll leave you with this nice tidbit. According to the BBC, the 2024 Olympics is in talks to include esports as a demonstrative sport. That is massive for the future of esports and the acceptance of it as, a viable alternative. Because if the Olympics thinks it is, why wouldn't anyone else? Thank you for listening.